Welcome to Make Peace with Food. I'm your host, Emily LaVoie, a certified eating psychology coach. I own a virtual private practice, and I work with clients all over the world, one-on-one and in group programs, to help heal their relationship with food and improve body image. Here at Make Peace with Food, we believe food is not your enemy, that eating should be fun and bring you joy and pleasure, not stress and guilt. To keep this a safe space, I will try my best to avoid mentioning numbers like calories and weight, as well as other potentially triggering content, but you know yourself best, so please avoid any episode topics that may not feel helpful to where you're at in your healing journey. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It's not a replacement for medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor does it provide a client or patient relationship. Consult your own provider on any changes you're thinking about making. Today's episode is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching. If you're curious about becoming a client and want to learn more about what it looks and feels like to receive support in healing your relationship with food and improving your body image, go to my website, emily-lavoie.com, to schedule a free 30-minute Zoom consultation. Welcome to episode 21. The podcast can now officially enjoy an adult beverage legally. That's my joke. Haha. Dun-dun-dun. That's my not funny joke. As always, little update before I get diving into the episode. So my update today, I just want to kind of talk a little bit about what I'm looking forward to and what you can also look forward to in the podcast as a listener as we transition into 2025. So it was really important to me to explain to you, the listener, some of the concepts of intuitive eating and health at every size and the anti-diet approach and maybe weight stigma and what a healthy relationship with food looks and feels like, and some background on body image and self-worth and self-esteem and all of those things. And speaking for myself, when I listen to a podcast, I'll go back as far as it will let me go and try to start like at the beginning. And I know that not every listener does what I do, and that's perfectly fine. But for people who do that, they'll have kind of like a grasp on a lot of the concepts and like a deeper understanding about a lot of the things with intuitive eating, health at every size, blah, blah, blah. So now that I feel like I have that laid out for you, not entirely, because there's always things. There's always more to learn and take in. But I feel like we've got a pretty good grasp on that, like 20 episodes in. And so as we transition into a new year, what we're going to be looking forward to is still doing solo episodes, but finally getting around to prioritizing having guests. And I think as a listener, there's going to be some opportunity for you to listen to some really rich conversations between myself, and the people who I have on the show as guests, which will maybe be some other experts in the field, people who do what I do or work similar to the work that I do, but maybe some other podcast hosts, maybe some authors, maybe some coaches, maybe people who do what I do, but do it more so in the political realm, because there is a huge component of this work that is highly political, which I haven't really necessarily talked about. So maybe I'll put that in the little bank about potential episodes in the future. And I'll also probably be asking some of maybe my current and even former clients if they'd be interested in having a conversation with me or getting interviewed by me on an episode. So if you're listening and you happen to be a current or former client of mine, reach out, shoot me an email. You know my phone number, send me a text. I would love to have you on the show and on an episode if you're feeling open to that. I know that your story will be helpful and inspiring to other people who are maybe struggling with what you used to struggle with, or maybe you've had, you're a former client, but maybe you have like a new concern that has arisen and you want to be a guest, and like we can actually talk through it live and have other people listen, see what it's like doing this work. The topic of today's episode is something that is called diet rock bottom, or I guess you could also say hitting diet rock bottom. The reason I want to explain this is because I would say all of my clients, or everybody who is considering doing this work, is because they are in the process of or have definitely hit diet rock bottom. I'm going to share with you the definition of diet rock bottom, but before I read the definition from my website's glossary, I want you to envision a Venn diagram, which is, if you don't remember that term from like elementary school, a Venn diagram is 3 sort of separate circles, but they all intersect in the middle. So those 3 circles that are kind of intersecting. That's what you're envisioning as I read you the definition of diet rock bottom. Diet rock bottom is the intersection of these 3 areas. 1, you cannot go on another diet ever again. 2, you still wish your body was different, though. And 3, you're grieving the time, money, energy, and happiness that you've wasted to diet culture and your failed attempts at weight loss. Feeling regret, sadness, and anger over the years lost to the pursuit of weight loss is really common. Hitting diet rock bottom is often a necessary breaking point people reach right before they are ready to explore intuitive eating and do the work to improve their relationship with food and their body or body image. I think what I want to do next is actually kind of go back to each of those 3 points, or, kind of focus a little bit of time and give a little bit of explanation to each of the 3 points. So each of the circles in the Venn diagram. So let's start with number 1, which is you cannot go on another diet ever again. A lot of people who are at this point have probably tried and failed at diets. And maybe it's the same diet over and over and over that they keep going on and off and on and off of. I see this so often with Weight Watchers here in the US and over in Europe and the UK, Slimming World. I do have like a large, for whatever reason, why I have no idea why this happens, I have a large client base in the UK. And it seems to like kind of all happen at once, where I'll get like a pretty significant handful of clients all from the UK, like at a very similar time. And this happened as well. Like I had kind of like a large chunk of clients all from Italy around the same time. And I had a large chunk of clients all from Bali right around the same time. And like a large chunk of clients from Iowa at the same time. Like, why does this happen? It probably has something to do with the algorithm. Who in the world knows? But if anybody has any idea, please feel free to shoot me an email or send me a DM. I'm just interested in learning, but yeah, I find it interesting. So I digressed. So some people go on the same diet over and over and over again. Other people would say to me, I have tried every single diet that has ever existed. So, oh my gosh, there's so many. And I don't really want to give any of them airtime because none of them work. So, I mean, like, use your imagination. Some of the ones that are trending currently, keto, intermittent fasting. I guess currently we could say a lot of people are experimenting with GLP-1s for weight loss. So the use of what is commonly referred to as Ozempic. Technically, it's only Ozempic if the patient has diabetes and they're using the prescription drug Ozempic, which is prescribed by probably either their primary care physician or hopefully an endocrinologist that's managing their diabetes to better manage their blood sugar. And they have also probably used some other prescription medicines like metformin There's a lot of prescription drugs kind of coming out within the last 10 to 20 years for the management of diabetes and blood sugar. And I'm so grateful for them because they are really helping patients better manage their blood sugar. And that's just awesome. And these people are deserving of healthcare. So anything that will help. So a lot of people who are patients with diabetes have tried some of these other prescription drugs and they haven't gotten the results with their blood sugar management that they and their healthcare providers want to see. And so they're trying Ozempic and hopefully getting much better results. So technically, when a person is taking, a lot of times it's the term Ozempic is being used, but they don't have diabetes and they're using it for weight loss. That would actually be Wegovy or just a GLP-1 semaglutide, not actually Ozempic. Again, I digressed. A lot of people can't stay on them because they make the vast majority of people incredibly sick. So I think a lot of the research studies that have been done on GLP-1s or semaglutides for weight loss, I want to say 80%, or typically it's, I think. I will fact check this and link some research studies in the show notes. And this is not always necessarily the easiest to find in research studies. Sometimes these are like, you have to read pages and pages and pages of a research study. And then in like the very last paragraph, this might be discussed. Where like 80% of the participants that are in these research studies end up dropping out of the research study. So a lot of times the results or the numbers that are being presented or reported from the research study aren't accurate because they're only reporting on the 20% who stayed in the study, which isn't like, to me, technically the truth. If 80% of people in the research study drop out, we're going to just assume that it wasn't working for them. They had to drop out because the medicine was making them sick. Yeah, and they just couldn't stay on it because they were feeling so lousy, or the symptoms that the medicine was causing was like just they couldn't tolerate it. Keto is very similar to Atkins. It's just like an Atkins reframe. Intermittent fasting is very similar to meal skipping. They're just using different terminology. I feel like calorie counting is very similar to Weight Watchers, and they're just using new terminology for that. Like, I see this all over social media, like just saying like caloric deficit, which is just calorie counting and eating a very low amount of calories. And I will remind you, and I think I say this in nearly every episode, that like 95 to 98% of diets fail. And like when I say diets, it's just the terminology that's used in research studies is intentional weight loss or the pursuit of intentional weight loss. And like every single type of way a person could possibly pursue intentional weight loss, whether it's through exercise, caloric deficit, restriction of carbs, blah, 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 cabbage soup diet. Like, I mean, like we could go way back into cottage cheese diet. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to fail. And that's what the research has proven. So if you are a person who has ever attempted to lose weight or intentionally pursued weight loss, there's a really good chance you're listening to this podcast episode because the pursuit of intentional weight loss through dieting, whatever that mode may be, ends up destroying your relationship with food almost all of the time. And it never just like reverts back to what it was originally. You kind of stay in this feeling chaotic around food, or feeling like you can't be trusted, or you can't control yourself, or you can't bring certain foods in the house, or you can't go to restaurants and be around, like go to parties and be around these foods, or you find yourself constantly overeating or eating to the point of uncomfortable fullness, or you're struggling with binge eating, or maybe you're a person who goes on and off diets. You're also a person that you're a weight cycler. So your weight is going up and down, and you're losing and regaining the same. Maybe it's 10, 20, 50, 100 pounds. And you've done that many, many times in your life. Like I've had clients tell me like, oh my gosh, if I added up all of the weight that I have lost in my lifetime, it would probably be, like 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. It's just I've lost the same 20 or 50 pounds over and over and over and over again. That like if you add it up, it's just astronomical number. But it takes a lot of energy, physical energy, mental capacity energy in order to go on a diet. If you're like that first circle of the Venn diagram we said is, you cannot go on another diet ever again. It's like, I can't muster up the energy and I don't have the willpower. And honestly, willpower will never work. So trying to muster up the willpower, I would never, ever, ever suggest that. Your challenge with food is not a willpower problem. So more willpower will never, ever address your challenge with food. So stop trying to bring that to the table. I guarantee you as a listener are maybe nodding along, yeah, I feel that exact same way. I feel like I cannot ever bring myself to go on another diet ever again. I don't want to do it. I don't have the energy. I don't have the mental capacity. I can't go back to reading every single label at the grocery store. I can't go back to making all of my meals and meal prepping from scratch and not being able to go to a restaurant and connect with my friends over a meal and not being able to enjoy a glass of wine. And when I go into a calorie deficit, I get so much anxiety. I become a crazy person and all I ever think about is food and I lose control around food. Maybe you even see a link between when you are dieting, you are also struggling with binge eating on the weekends, or maybe it's at night every single evening. And you just are I'm done with that. There's no freaking way I can ever do that to myself again. It takes away from my time with family. It's just not something I'm interested or capable of doing. So moving on to the second circle of the Venn diagram, again, I'll read it. It says, you wish your body was different. You don't love the size of your body, the weight of your body, or the shape of your body. So basically, to quickly sum up this second circle of the Venn diagram, you don't like the way you look in the mirror, which translation is you're struggling with poor body image and you deserve help if you're struggling with poor body image. I've said this in many episodes before. We don't change our body image. We don't improve our body image by changing the way we look. That is a huge myth of diet culture that, once I look the way I want to look, then I'll have a better body image. That actually has been proven wrong in a lot of research studies. When a person does pursue intentional weight loss and their body changes to the way they think they wanted it to look, that typically their body image actually becomes worse and not better, meaning that they're really preoccupied with their appearance or constantly living in fear that their body is, or their weight or their appearance or their size or shape is going to go back to what it used to be. So there's not peace if you're constantly living in this heightened sense of fear. And that could kind of also cause you to be living in this constant state of fight or flight and anxiety, having stress about it. And that's not what you want. That's not peace with your body. So also related to this is the fact that even if you do pursue intentional weight loss through whatever modality of dieting, there's a really good chance that your body is going to change, whether that's the diet fails because the diet was unsustainable, no fault of your own. They're just clearly unsustainable. Or just the regular aging process, which moves us farther away from the beauty standard every single day. And the fountain of youth has not been discovered yet. We haven't figured out a way to stop the aging process. Your body is not going to look the way it looks today for the rest of your life. So take that into consideration as well. And then moving on to the third circle in the Venn diagram, you're grieving the time, money, energy, and happiness that you've wasted to diet culture and your failed attempts to weight loss. I guess I've already kind of covered this and talked about this, but it takes so much time to do all of the meal prepping and go to the store and read all of the labels and do all of the shopping. And it takes so much mental capacity because, actually, this is kind of cool. When we are eating less than enough, you've probably done it at some point in your life because you have been on a diet. You might notice yourself feeling like, God, all I ever think about is food. I'm thinking about food around the clock. Like, I haven't even eaten my breakfast yet, and I'm already thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch and dinner. And like, I'm already looking forward to like my quote unquote cheat meal this weekend. And it's like, okay, like cheat meals, let's just call them what they are. They're planned binges. Digress. But yeah, it takes an incredible amount of energy to stay on a diet. But if you feel like you're nodding along with me, like, yes, I have been on a diet and I find myself like obsessively thinking about food and being super preoccupied and like not being able to think about anything else. And the mental capacity that food takes up in my head is astronomical. That is what our body is actually hardwired to do. It's so cool. When we are eating less than enough, our body forces us to think about food and seeking out food and getting enough food so that we can get out of that like starvation mode and like live and not die. Because if it went on for long enough, you know, our body doesn't know the difference between intentional dieting or the pursuit of intentional weight loss and being on a stranded desert island and starving or, you know, experiencing a famine. Our body has no idea. All it knows is it's not getting enough food. And so like, if you feel like, yeah, I'm nodding along with you, Emily, like, yes, when I've gone on a diet, I find myself thinking about food, like, congratulations, your body is so wise. It is doing exactly what it's designed to do. But yeah, that's not a fun way to go through life, like constantly obsessing about food and feeling like you can't think about anything else. And if that's you, one of the things I would like really encourage you to try is like, hey, if you want to stop thinking about food as much as you are, and that's like a complaint of yours, there's a really good chance you need to eat more fucking food. Just eat more food. Eat a more substantial, balanced breakfast. Have your breakfast be just more. So more protein, more dietary fat, more of like carbohydrates, things that you enjoy. Have your breakfast bring you pleasure. Experiment with breakfasts that are warm or cold, or like eat snacks throughout the day, eat lunch, have a significant dinner. And like, I can almost guarantee you, like, if you do this for a little while, you're going to stop thinking about food so much because your body will be like, oh, cool. I don't have to like force the thought of food into your brain anymore because you're finally giving me enough. You're finally giving me what I wanted and was trying to ask you for by forcing you to think about food so much. A lot of people, when they are dedicating this much time and energy to the pursuit of intentional weight loss and just those constant thoughts of food, like they feel like their happiness level declines. So yes, while you're dieting and attempting to lose weight, it might feel like, yeah, I'm not as happy and I thought that losing weight was going to make me so happy. And it's like, no, actually it doesn't work that way, because if you're not able to connect with friends over food and share meals and like laugh and listen to jokes and like concentrate on things that used to bring you joy. I remember, God, back when I was like sick and struggling with food and all of these things and, you know, like disordered eating, undiagnosed eating disorder, incredibly poor body image, I would say my quote unquote hobby was weight loss or the pursuit of weight loss or trying to make my body perfect, because I didn't have any remaining mental capacity or brain space left over to actually pursue a real hobby. And I've heard this from a lot of other people and clients that like, wow, this was kind of like almost like a full-time job. This was like an around the clock thought. And it took so much time and energy. And it's like, no, like hobbies that you're actually interested in that bring you joy and pleasure and interests, those bring you happiness, and connecting with friends and loved ones, that brings you happiness, and dieting takes away from all of that. So you might really see your happiness level declining. So we've got the Venn diagram, or the intersection of these three circles, and then that intersection in the very middle where all three circles touch, it would say diet rock bottom. It's the intersection of all three of these things. So if you feel like this is you, I think a big reason I wanted to do this episode is around New Year's, diet culture is screaming incredibly loud. I've talked about that in other episodes recently. I think episode 20 right before this, or maybe it was 19. Anyway, you can go back and listen to those episodes if you haven't yet, but you're probably going to be really tempted to go on a diet or pursue intentional weight loss. Or maybe you're not even calling it a diet, right? Maybe you're calling it a lifestyle change, or I want to become healthier, but that also translates to you as, and I will lose weight when I am healthier. It's going to be very tempting this time of year. But if you feel like this is you, diet rock bottom, please reach out to me or somebody else who does this work. This might be the most ideal time for you to schedule a free Zoom consultation and put in the work to improve your relationship with food and improve your body image. This stuff works. This is not a quick fix that is going to backfire and ultimately end up failing and leaving you, on this diet roller coaster spin cycle, merry-go-round. Like, get off of all of those nonsense rides. Break the cycle of generational dieting. Don't pass that along to your kids or your nieces or your grandkids or your nephews, whatever. Improve your relationship with food and improve your body image. And I promise you will get so much more out of it. You'll be so much happier, and you will no longer be wasting your precious time, money, and energy on something that is ultimately not going to work, hasn't worked for you in the past, and hasn't worked for anybody in the past. I hope you found this helpful. Bye. That's the show. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you take a minute to follow or subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the podcast and continue spreading this important information to more people who need to hear it. This podcast is made possible by paid supporters at patreon.com/makepeacewithfood. They're truly what keep this show going so that I can pay my assistant, editor, producer, and allow me to keep sharing all of this content and doing this important and needed work with you all. Go to patreon.com/makepeacewithfood to sign up for as little as $3 per month. Make Peace with Food is hosted by me, Emily LaVoie. It's produced and edited by Jake Lamore at Pathfinder. Thank you so much for your support.